So these notes are going to introduce us to dimensioning AutoCAD drawings, and we're going to start this process on paper, kind of like we did with multi-view drawings, so that we can develop an intuition for how many dimensions are necessary and where those dimensions are necessary before we start going back onto the computer with more complex drawings that'll necessitate lots and lots of dimensions. So first of all, we need to learn some definitions, and this is actually not a good example of a dimension drawing. There are too many dimensions, which we call redundant dimensions, but we can see at least some of the tools that make up a dimension. So on the top here, we've got a dimension line, and those are the lines that they extend from the number, from the dimension itself, and then they point to the ends of where that dimension measures. And sometimes that can be on the shape itself, but other times it points to these other lines that extend down to the shape, and those lines are called extension lines. So what that allows us to do is it allows us to take these dimensions, and instead of writing them like right on top of the shape, we can spread them out a little bit and keep them farther away from the shape, and then just show that this extension line goes all the way to this corner, and so this 3 dimension actually is talking about this corner and this corner. It references those corners, excuse me. Then the last thing we have to learn is the leader line. A leader line is usually a horizontal or vertical line, and then an angled line that points to something rounded. So here it's pointing to a circle and tells us what the diameter is. Here's another example which points to an arc, and it tells us what the radius of that arc and another arc on the shape is. Just a reminder for these 2 symbols, the first tells us about radius and the second tells us about diameter. We usually use radius for arcs or partial circles, and then diameters we usually use for full circles. And so remember, you use the symbol and then you put the measurement right next to it. So a radius of like 2 or a diameter of 4, and we can use those tools on the drawings that we dimension. Dimensions show size and location, and so in order to begin dimensioning, we need to count and see how many different dimensions we need based on the unique aspects of a drawing. And these aspects, since there are lots of them, it would be useful for us to sort them into width and height dimensions. And so what we'll do is we can look at the shape over here on the right, and we can see how many are width dimensions, how many height dimensions are, and then how many rounded objects that we need to tell the size there are in order to figure out the total dimensions necessary. So we'll start with width. We're going to start over in this corner because this is the farthest to the left point on our object. And so from this corner, as we move to the right, we're going to see how many unique aspects we pass on the way. And so as we're going from here, the first unique aspect we'll pass is down here on the bottom because this corner is not in line with that corner. The next unique aspect is the location, the horizontal location of the circle. The third is this edge. The fourth is this edge. And then the fifth is this edge, which gets us all the way to the right side of our drawing. And so that tells us that because there are those 5 unique aspects, we're going to need 5 width dimensions in our finished dimension drawing. We're then going to repeat the process with height dimensions. And so here we're going to start at the top of our drawing and work our way down. And so from the top of our drawing, the first unique aspect that we pass is going to be the vertical location of the circle. Then the next one that we're going to pass is this edge right here. The next one we'll pass is this edge. And then the final one that we will encounter is this bottom edge. And so from the top to the bottom, there are 4 unique vertical aspects, which means that we are going to need 4 height dimensions in our final drawing. And then the last thing that I said is we need to know how many rounded things we need to define the size for. And so there's one circle right here, which we would say we need to tell the drawer how big it is with either a radius or a dimension. And so we're going to add one more size dimension to our total dimensions, getting us a total of 10 dimensions that are going to be necessary to fully dimension this drawing. There are a couple of things that we should avoid or try to accomplish when we're making dimensions. One thing is trying to keep all of our dimensions together on one side of the shape as much as we can. So having some down here and some up there, and none of them, if they're on the same side, align with each other, makes it a little messy and hard for a drawer to read. So if we can keep them all grouped together, that would be very helpful. Another thing that we want to do is avoid lines that cross. So if we look over at this example, the bad example, this dimension has an extension line that goes through this longer dimension. And so a good way to avoid this is always keep your bigger dimensions farther away from your shape and your smaller dimensions very close to your shape, which will allow you to have the smaller ones inside the bigger ones. And then when we have things that tell us the size of an object, try to keep them close to that object and inside of the object as much as possible. This is usually, historically, the thing that CAD students struggle with the most, and that is avoiding redundant dimensions. Redundant means not useful or useless, and that's because we only want as many dimensions as we need, and we don't want too many. And so one way to see dimensions that are redundant is when they're the same number on either side of the drawing, which there aren't any examples of that here. But if you were to say that the total height of the shape is 10.5, and then on this other side you'd also put another 10.5 dimension, that would be redundant. Another thing that's redundant is when you can add up dimensions like this 2, 2.5, and 3.5, and then add it up to 8. And so actually these four dimensions, let me go back to, sorry about that. These four dimensions actually are redundant because we can just calculate any of these if we take one of them away. So we could add up the smaller dimensions to find out that bigger dimension, or if we had the bigger dimension, we could do some subtraction and find any one of these smaller dimensions. So we want to be really careful, and that's why we count all of those edges, so we have a plan and know exactly how many we're looking for, and we don't want to go over that amount. And then on multi-view drawings, we want to approach these a little bit differently, and there's no multi-view drawings on your homework for tonight, but we are going to eventually dimension multi-view drawings. And so what we want to do for this is we want to fully dimension one of the views, which in this case, the front view is fully dimensioned. And this one we really just treated like a regular drawing like I've talked about so far, like a two-dimensional drawing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try to think about what perspective isn't shown on this view. And the answer is we can see the full height, we can see the full width, but we can't see the depth at all in the front view. And so then we have to use either the top view or the side view in order to dimension the depth. And so I chose to use the side view. I fully dimensioned the depth of this shape, and then I left this top view completely undimensioned. And that's because with just these two, we've fully dimensioned the object. I did height dimensions, width dimensions, and depth dimensions over here. And so this way, it's an easy way to organize ourselves so we don't accidentally dimension the same thing twice on two different views. So here are the rules that we went through on this slideshow, and that you should keep in mind as I work through the 4 examples. Thank you for watching.